Hey guys, I got Sebastian here today. So Sebastian has a really interesting story. He's going to show you how he scaled a beauty brand from 5K a month to 350K a month revenue in just 12 weeks. And second of all, I think what Sebastian does is really interesting because he has an agency in Germany. He runs his own coaching program in Germany. So he's basically in the Germany and the European market, and he's crushing it. And one of the things I really want to dig into is what are the differences between selling in Europe versus Germany. So Sebastian, why don't you just tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed your channel in the past, and so I'm happy to contribute something for that too. Excuse my German accent. Maybe I'm sounding a bit like Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's not on purpose. Yeah, I'm running an agency in Germany for 4 years now. It really took off like 2 years ago, and I'm solely focusing on the German, Austrian, and Switzerland markets. So it's like the German-speaking countries. And on there, we really had a lot of fun in the past, scaling e-commerce offers on Facebook and a couple of other platforms, but Facebook still is the king for e-commerce traffic, in my opinion. And besides that, I'm running a coaching offer, like you mentioned, teaching people basically doing that on their own that normally I would do with my agency.
That's very, very cool. So you basically use Facebook ads to scale e-commerce brands very quickly.
Yes, I think Facebook ads are by far the biggest leverage in selling your products online. I think for e-commerce, it's very easy to start for most of the people because the algorithm is doing a lot of work for you. So you just have to have like the right kind of inputs to make some substantial amount of profit in the beginning.
Yeah, that's one thing definitely with YouTube ads, e-commerce. It is a more of an intermediate to advanced advertiser game, right? If you're an e-commerce brand and if you're just starting out, Facebook ads is better. However, once you're ready to scale, that's where YouTube can add a lot of volume and stability and scale. But for, it just requires your business to be at a higher level. So at our agency, we usually have a pretty high minimum level for an e-commerce client if they want to take on YouTube ads, just because we know it's not that plug and play as Facebook initially. So you kind of have to work at it a bit. So in terms of what you do with Facebook ads, one of the things you told me is you're basically able to hyper scale a beauty brand from 5K a month to 350K a month in 12 weeks. So number one, I would love to know how you did that. And number two, I would love to know, like, how did that affect their supply and inventory lines, and what happened in that side of things when you scale that hard?
Yeah, sure. Very happy to talk about it. So it was like a client that was selling a hairbrush, like an electric hairbrush, straightening the hair when you stroke down with it. I think it's just a woman's product. And the client came to me and he was doing a bit of influencer traffic, just sponsoring some micro influencers, giving them the brush, and then just changing like the product in return for some stories and having a bit of affiliate deals here and there. But he saw that it has a kind of big potential because every time like a micro influencer was posting it, it was getting a lot of traction on there. So I looked at the product and I was thinking, all right, this is a pretty neat kind of product because you can position it in a kind of unique opportunity. And I think if you really want to hyperscale a product on Facebook, you have to present it in a way that is unique. You don't need a unique product. You need to present it in a way that looks unique to your audience, because you can't really hyperscale a product that is just so common that everyone is using it already and everyone has like 10 of them at home. So we took a lot of work positioning this product with a new opportunity, because you can't just sell a hairbrush. I think just a hairbrush for like 30 bucks, it's not the ideal ad product, you know. But if you take this hairbrush and you like have like this wow effect, like maybe when you have like the viral videos, maybe you scroll through Facebook and you find a viral video of like a pretty unique kind of tool. You have to make your product kind of a bit like that, because to scale it that far on international market, for you international, for me it's a national market, you really have to make the people think, all right, I've never seen this stuff and I got to have it. So that was a lot
And
of work.
how did you do that with this hairbrush? What was like the angle you took?
Yeah, so the angle was like, we of course had to ask like the customers that bought the hairbrush before, why this brush is awesome. And everyone was telling us, all right, every time, like as a woman, like I step out of the car or I leave my house, my hair is getting like kind of puffy because like the electricity and humid in the air, and it's like a quick fix for a bad hair day. We positioned it kind of like that.
So it's like something they can instantly do and they'll have better hair.
Yeah, you have to have it in your
Yeah.
purse. You have to have it in your purse. You don't have like a hair straightener in your purse with the electricity and stuff like that, but you have like this little brush with a battery in it. You have that one in your purse, and you can always just straighten your hair on the go.
That is really, really cool because that's definitely a unique kind of offer. Because usually, you think of a hairbrush, you don't think of it as kind of being something that solves a pain point. You kind of think of it as like, oh yeah, it's part of my like hair routine or whatever. But you don't think of it as like, oh, there's this one thing that's going to transform my hair. Usually, you think it's like this whole going to spa salon thing. But then having this as a hey, like bring this in your bag. It's a small, tiny thing, and you can just make your hair look awesome. That's something new. So that's definitely interesting. And so once you guys figured out that angle, how did you guys scale that with your ad strategy?
Yeah, so we had a little bit of cash like in the bank, so we had to bootstrap all the scaling. So we have a lot of fight with PayPal to release the money that we took in, and then pay the stuff off with a credit card, like the usual stuff. And like in the beginning, we really focused on finding like our base audiences. And in e-commerce, especially on Facebook, it's really important that you can sell your product to like the most logical audience you can find. If you are selling like a bed for dogs, you got to have like creators that sell this product to the interested dogs or dog owners. You have to, otherwise your product sucks or your creators are shit. So you really have to find like your base audience. And on the hair audience, we just targeted in the beginning like competitor brands, like pretty normal hair brands, kind of a bit upmarket. So not like your discounter prices, but your like MAC Cosmetics and GHD and stuff like that. So a bit of more expensive kind of hair accessories. And once we got our ads going on there, we just tried to squeeze out just a bit more profitability on these audiences. And after that, we took the creatives that worked well and tried to scale it on a lot of similar audiences.
So basically, first you started out with interests that are based on competitor brands, but still pretty broad. And as you said, that's very similar to YouTube because it's like, hey, if you've got a really good offer, it needs to be able to work to broader audiences, right?
Yes.
Unless you're selling something really expensive to a very specific niche. But if you're selling something mass market, like a hair care product, something that's like 30, 40, 50, even $100, or if in the cases of courses, if you're selling anything under $2,000, you kind of have to make sure it works to a broader audience. And the only way you can make things work to a very specific niche audience is if it's a higher ticket offer. So that makes a lot of sense where you kind of basically try to test it on those broader interests. And if it starts working, you know that, hey, this is working. And then once you have that, you basically use lookalike audiences to start scaling it.
Yeah. So like in the beginning, my main goal, like on every ad account that I start with, is having like 2 to 3 stable CBO campaigns. So like just campaigns that are giving me for a good amount of profit, just stable conversions a day. Because I hate to test a lot of stuff while I'm in the red. I hate to test stuff while I'm unprofitable because I can't think then that the client isn't happy, and you can't just be really creative with your mind if you have like the danger of loss back in your neck. And I really hate that. So I want like the stability of 2 to 3 CBO campaigns based on the interests I found. And besides that, I pretty much always like build a good retargeting campaign going through every funnel step. And the CBO campaigns are pretty helpful on that because you can just put every funnel step that is, so like Facebook engager, Instagram engager, content views, add to carts, initiate checkouts, all these audiences, and like everyone is like one single ad set inside the CBO. So the algorithm has like five chances to find your customer to retarget them. And of course, the campaigns are learning from that too. So you have then really small custom audiences in there, like 5 days engager, 5 days page views. And you can just leave this campaign running like the whole year because the audiences are refreshing itself every single day. And you have like a safety net once you test everything out. because the retargeting is always giving you kind of profit. You have your base CBOs that are working, and then pretty much your own task as a marketer is to find like these, I think Sam Owens calls it the fractal patterns, like the working kind of elements inside your campaigns. You really have to find them, like audiences that are working, creatives that are working, copies that are working, and then try to scale it horizontally to different kind of audiences. And once you find enough new audiences, you can put them in a CBO again. So that's pretty much just the workflow you have to do.
Got it. So basically, you're trying to find little pieces that are working and then combine them, scale them. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And in terms of basically with scaling this particular offer, did you find that as you started to scale ad spend, how did the costs kind of stay? Like, were you able to maintain cost per acquisition, or did they go up, but you had enough margin that it was okay? Like, how did that look like when you went from scaling from like 5K to like 350K?
Yeah, so we managed to keep the profit pretty stable, but we had to work to have it like that. So once we scaled the cold traffic ad spend more, we really had to do like different layers of retargeting or loyalty campaigns. And I really like to combat, like every time I scale my cold traffic, to combat it like with the warm traffic, so that I keep my profit margins basically the same. Because of course, once you invest more in your cold campaigns, you have way more traffic to retarget. So I really like to run the people through different layers of retargeting, have like a 2 to 3 day retargeting window to give them just a reminder, hey, you tried to check out. And after that, you can give them like a different kind of incentive, like maybe a discount code, maybe 2 for 1, maybe a similar product. Because I really don't want to lose the client that cost me like 2 to 3 times the impressions and it's not checking out. I really want them like even in 2 weeks for break even, but I really don't want to lose the client.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things I've noticed as well with ecom. I remember back in the day before it became a YouTube ads only agency, we were running Facebook ads for the supplement brand, I believe called MindLab Pro, and man, like with that brand, I remember the best campaign we had was like retargeting buyers like 30 days. So if they bought a 30-day package, retarget them 30 days after, right?
Yeah.
Or like if they bought like 60 pills for 60 days, retarget them 60 days after and it'll get like a ridiculous ROI. And it's just like those like, basically that's where I think the strength of Facebook really is that like you can basically dial in so much to like these audiences and they can be tiny, but you can still make so much money from them. And Facebook's amazing at that. While with YouTube, it's definitely like more of a mass market, like scale up play with YouTube, where you gotta kind of have a higher cost per acquisition. You got to be able to make it work to really cold traffic, and retargeting is not as good as Facebook from my experience, right? Like we've run so many YouTube ad campaigns, like you would think logically that we would start with retargeting on most accounts, but it's like usually we start with a mix of cold and maybe a little bit of retargeting, right? And sometimes the retargeting works, sometimes it's kind of mediocre. But our focus has always been with YouTube is like, hey, make cold traffic work. If we can spend $5,000 a day on cold traffic and we're profitable, we know we're okay. And then obviously retargeting might help, but Facebook is where retargeting will really work super well, and we know that bringing that YouTube traffic in will help their Facebook ad efforts with the retargeting. So that's one thing we've noticed with like the differences between the platforms is that like YouTube is just not amazing at retargeting, while Facebook is amazing at retargeting. But sometimes when you start to scale up, you can run into a couple issues here and there. But pros and cons, right? Like every platform has its pros and cons.
Sure.
And in terms of so coming back to as you were scaling up, right?
Yeah.
What else did you guys do to make sure things would hold at scale? Were you guys working on email marketing sequences? Were you guys working on like other parts of their business as well, or was that a client's responsibility?
Yeah, so once we scaled up a bit more aggressive, we of course just did like the conversion rate optimization from the shop. So from the store, sorry. That we try to increase like the checkout percentages, the abandoned cart recoveries. We did like with SMS marketing, push notifications. Like once someone was on our store, he was getting really annoyed by us. So I really have to admit, like, if you really visited the store, there was no going back. So we spent a lot of time on there to build it up, and it paid dividends in the past, really. Because even like the last week, I didn't spend that much on the cold traffic, because like with the new year and stuff like that. But like the abandoned cart sequences, the emails we had, and like the push notifications was awesome to get a lot of warm customers back.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. I like that. I have a form of thinking. It's like you gotta just retarget hard until like they're like they get a little annoyed. That's how you know you're top of mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. Because you should have to buy it to stop it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even then, shouldn't stop. Just keep hitting them up for more stuff. And about the inventory and supply issues. So
That was
with
funny.
these,
That was
yeah.
really funny. So the offer was still dropshipping. It was not branded yet.
Uh-huh.
So he had a pretty reliable client in China, and the
Yeah.
client was, in the beginning, he was really happy, like, whoa, this stuff is taking off. Like in the middle part of the scaling, he was like, damn, this is so awesome, keep going, keep going. And and the last 2 to 3 weeks, he was cursing, he was like, we can't do that. He had to like buy from his colleagues all his inventory, stuff like that. And we have to like be sold out for a week, and then we have to start pre-orders up again. So it got kind of messy.
Yeah, that sucks when that happens. But yeah, that's one of the toughest things about scaling ecom versus info. Is like
Yeah.
info is like you can scale really hard, really fast without any issues about inventory. Like your refund rates go up a bit because your customer
Sure.
support probably gets overwhelmed.
Mhm.
But with info, it's pretty easy to scale very, very quickly. While with ecom, you can do it, but you have to be very good at planning. And then sometimes
Yeah.
when you get those amazing opportunities where CPMs are super low, and then like let's say something happens with your supply line, and you're just sitting there being like, I could be making so much money now, but I'm not. So it's
Yeah.
definitely interesting, that whole aspect of it. And that's one of the parts about e-commerce that nobody talks about. Everybody talks about advertising and marketing, but like suppliers, factories, the best e-com people I know, they go and meet their suppliers. Like I have a friend who sells on
Yes.
Amazon. He literally lived in China for like a year
Yeah.
to get the best rate and best suppliers. So it's definitely one of those things where with ecom you have to have as a mind for operations and fulfillment as much as for marketing and sales. But then that's why guys like you are there, because you're the guy that allows them to focus on fulfillment and operations while you take care of their advertising and bring in customers.
Yeah, that's the reason why I don't run like a store myself, because I don't want to spend my time doing that. So I just want to focus on the marketing. That really is the reason why I really hate like having these operations, and I'm kind of a bit too introverted to go talk to my suppliers and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, I like selling a course. That's
Yeah, me too.
yeah, it's nice. And so tell us about your coaching program. What exactly do you do with that?
Yeah, sure. So, like, the reason why I started the coaching program was because I had too many clients in my agency, and I didn't want to do like the whole big kind of agency with having 6 media buyers and like 10 fulfillment people and 3 creative designers. So I was like
Mhm.
reducing my agency by size, just focusing on the key players. But still, because Germany isn't that big and you have a lot of word of mouth, I was getting a lot of potential clients, and a lot of potential clients from the dropshipping or e-commerce niche. They heard about, like, I helped a couple of guys scale that up, and I was like, okay, so of course I can help them, but then there's a problem. If I do like a free consultation call and just have them go their own way, there's like no guarantee for their success, because you can't just can say so much on a call, because like after an hour you can just give them like the basics and help them for free, but it's not going to really help them for the rest of their career in media buying. So I started
Yeah.
the coaching program without a program, just doing one-on-one calls with kind of
Mhm.
people. And after working with, I think, 10 to 15 guys one-on-one, I then started like building the course for that as a supplementary, still kept the one-on-one calls going. And at this point now, I have a pretty solid course, like really, really solid course. and then I do just the consultation calls with them, kind of just supplementing the course. So I think I'm at the stage now where you can't just eliminate the personal touch with them, but maybe in the future. But the principles are kind of the same on everyone, you know. But I think you can't do a really, really, really good high ticket program without a personal touch.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that. You know, like even with our YouTube ads course, right? Like it's basically like, you know, the weekly calls are really important. Students
Yes.
find a lot. Our best students, the ones who get the best results, they show up on like most of those calls, right?
Yes.
It just makes sense,
Same for
right? Like,
me.
you know, you show up to the calls, you ask questions, you get ideas, you brainstorm. Um, and then the other thing is obviously getting your questions answered very specifically and very in depth, right? Like, so if you have a very specific question, having an expert that can answer it to you, whether it's in a Facebook group or whatever support channel, is extremely important. So with our program, what we do is I'm in the program doing the calls, I'm answering questions, but I also have my team members for specific issues because there's so many things involved with YouTube ads,
Yes.
right? Like there's like last week we had a student who was having some account compliance issues, and in our agency we had dealt with exactly the same thing for a client. So basically, we just had my account manager help the student out and tell him exactly what he needed to do, and now he's working on resolving the suspension. So that's one thing with like agencies. Like, if you do create a coaching program, you can definitely have your team help out people, and then that can kind of ensure that people are getting a really high quality of service, while also making sure that you don't have to do everything.
Yes, 100%. And on my part, because I'm helping like clients scale, they do have to have some working products or offers.
Yeah.
So I don't have to do like this whole product market fit problem, because like in the beginning when you start an e-commerce brand, you have like the biggest problem ever to find traction with your product. It's like an intro tool if you don't have a really good niche. And then, but once you have that, I think my ideal client is someone who's doing like 5 figures a month, and he has no idea why. That's like the ideal client. If he has
Yeah.
like bad advertising, but a kind of great product, and then I can help them scale it up really, really fast. And I'm really annoyed if a client of mine isn't doing like 6 figures in 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like product market fit is definitely the hardest thing. Do you help your clients with figuring that out, or do you only take on clients that have already figured out a good product market fit?
It depends. Like oftentimes you have a pretty solid product. You just have to position it in a way that you can get product market fit. In that case, I of course help them. But if you have just an idea of a product that has never been sold, you never saw it before, like I
Mhm.
can't really solve that problem for them.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, there's different people with different skill sets. I feel the same way as you. Like, I'm better at scaling things that are
Yeah.
working rather than just like figuring out a product market fit. I'm not the most amazing at product market fit. But then if somebody else has something that's kind of proven, or like, we test it at low spend and it works, then it's easy to scale it.
Yes.
So that definitely makes a lot of sense. And with our course, we usually take on people, or at least, usually either they run an agency or they're spending like a decent amount of money on ads for their own brand, or they're like their own brand is doing well organically, right? Like 30K a month plus. And then like those people are like usually the ones we can help out with YouTube ads, while somebody who's just making like, a couple grand a month selling like ecom products, it's just like a lot tougher, just because it's like they have less traction. Um, and a big part of anything advertising is it's all competition. Like you're competing
Yes.
against other people, right? Like, and that's why like geo arbitrage can work super well, right? Like you're doing the coaching program, you're doing ecom in Germany, so I assume there's probably like less competition. There's less people doing exactly what you're doing, which is why it's easy for you to, like basically get word of mouth referrals from people, because it's like, hey, I need to scale my ecom store. Oh, there's like one guy who does that,
Yeah.
right? In German language and German. And the same thing I've noticed with our kind of like auto webby funnel, which is actually a webinar offer in Brazil. There, it was basically super easy to launch and scale because nobody here in Brazil does automated webinars. Everybody does like product launch formula stuff from like, it's like basically 5-10 years behind the US market. So that's something I find very interesting. And I want to segue that into the next question, which is how do you find the German market to be different than the US market, or like, and how do you find, let's say, the German market to be different than other European markets? I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, sure. I think that's an awesome question because most of the people are just focusing on like the big countries, just US, and don't want to worry about anything else. But I think it has, on the US, you have like one big advantage because everyone is putting this stuff on his credit card. Like if they're thinking like the creative, yeah, it looks funny, it makes sense. What's my credit card limit for this month? Ah, okay, I can take it. So the US, like the US customers, they are not that price sensitive, to be honest. You just have to nail the product market fit, and you have like an awesome brand name. And if you can like fit into these two categories, you can get a sale there. But in the German market, especially the German markets, I think it's the most notorious price sensible market there is because the Germans are really, really, really frugal. And if they are buying something, they have to, it has to really make sense for them. And they have to argue with their wife about it, why they are buying something like that. So you have to really communicate the value that your product is giving the customer to them. And they have to calculate in their mind if the price makes sense for them. So you really have to work like with the price argumentation there. But if you can convince them logically that it makes sense to buy your product, they're 100% in. So the conversion rate on these kind of people is awesome. And it's the same for Europe too, I think. Europe really is not like a credit card, not a credit card thing. We don't have that much credit cards. Like the typical limit on a credit card is like $1,000. It's like not the same like in the US. So the people are buying it with their own money and it's going directly out of their bank accounts. So it has to make sense for them to really buy it.
Got it. So it's basically it's a far more logic-based sale in Germany, where
Yes.
I guess they're more interested in, hey, is this a good value? Does this do what it offers, etc. While in the US market, it's much more about an emotional sale.
Yes. And they're pretty sensitive about shipping times too. So you better communicate that you're taking a couple of days more than usual because they're getting royally pissed and opening up a PayPal case.
Got it. Got it. So it's just, okay, that's very, very interesting. And that's kind of what I've heard from people as well, is that marketing is a little bit different. While in the US, you can get away with being really emotional claims and appeals and like
Yes.
very exaggerated marketing. While in Germany, it seems like people are much more logical. So you kind of have
Yes.
to actually show them that, hey, this product, this is what it does. This is why the pricing makes sense. This is how it is better than competition. And it's far less kind of like emotional place where you can't really manipulate their emotions to the sale, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And if you can combine like the emotional kind of stuff with the logical side, then you have a German customer.
Got it. So they're still emotional, but it's not like the logical is a big part of it.
Yeah, so the first touch point is emotional. If you can get them on the emotional side, they are then calculating if it makes sense on the logical side. So you have to
Got
have
it.
your hook emotional, and then you have to have like testimonials and good reviews and shipping times and freight insurance or stuff like that. And then they're feeling comfortable to buy it, especially on high ticket kind of e-commerce things. I once worked with someone who is selling infrared saunas, pretty expensive type of stuff. And his conversion rate nearly doubled once he did the freight insurance thing on his cost. So he was advertising with freight insurance on my term. And you don't have to worry about it. It's like we even built this thing at your house. No extra costs. His conversion rate really doubled. It exploded his whole funnel.
I think I want to buy that. That's very cool. That's very cool. So that's interesting to know. And what about in terms of Germany versus other European countries? Because I know you run traffic in other European countries. Do you find that like the copy is different or is it similar?
I think, so in Germany, the people are smelling your bullshit. Sorry if you have to peep it if
No.
I can't say it on YouTube. You just have to back up your claims in Germany. You really have to. And in the other countries, it's not that strict. I really liked the Eastern countries, like Eastern European countries, like Poland, Russia, because I think the e-commerce is really on the rise there because of the whole pandemic thing and stuff like that. People are staying home and the buying powers are shifting into online. And there are a lot of people in the Eastern European countries who have a lot of money who were used to spend it offline. And now they have the money in their bank accounts online. And if you can run an offer that is maybe a bit of more on the higher ticket side on e-commerce to there, it can really work there. And the Eastern European women especially love their beauty kind of products.
Yeah, they're very obsessed with that. Cool. So yeah, I gotta run because I got another call with my
No
team.
problem.
But I really appreciate you being on this call and sharing all this awesome knowledge, especially like the differences between different countries. I'm curious, how can people find out about you? How can they reach out to you if they're in Germany, they want to take your program? Do you have a website?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I had a lot of fun, and I hope I could give something of the value back that you gave me with the channel. And if people want to find me or my coaching program, they can just like type in the URL ecomscaling.org. It's just ecomscaling.org, just in the URL
Awesome.
bar, and you just find out. Finally, you can book a call with me. You're actually speaking to myself there. I don't have a salesperson on there, so. If you want to chat or want to work with me, you can just reach out to me there.
Awesome. So I'll put a link in the description of the YouTube video. So really appreciate you having you on here, and yeah, I look forward to hearing more of your kind of success stories and the cool stuff you get up to, and I appreciate it. All right, thanks guys, and yeah, guys, subscribe to the channel. Ask any questions for Sebastian. I'll send him the link so that he can answer any questions. And yeah, see you guys later.